that we can have a little access to the inner heart in a time of prayer. The inner heart is really something, in a sense, is untouchable. Untouchable. Hold on. For those interested in the journal, just posted it. Interest in the journal, so I just posted the link. So the inner heart is what defines us, because it's the core of the essence of our soul that's expressed in the inner of our heart. It is something that we don't ultimately have awareness of. Not something that we have awareness of, it's beyond awareness. It's just as the core essence of who we are. It's not like my awareness, my soul. It's something that's not bound and limited to my awareness and my knowledge of it. It's beyond it. So, yet, we can have access to it in a time of prayer. So the Untitled is going to add to this now. How do we get that in a time of prayer? How do we get a gift from above that can access the core of our soul that's reflected in the inner dimension of the heart? Inner means the way the thing is to itself, of itself, not the way it is external, has a consequence or has a value, not in and of itself, but a value that what it gains, so to speak. And as we explained at great length previously. So to be able to touch this, there has to be prayer is where it's going to be, shall we say, experienced, but there has to be something before prayer that will allow us to experience the inner dimension of our heart. And that has to come from within. As everything in this world is, that it should be of this world, there has to be an arousal from below that brings about the arousal from above, that brings this great light from above. And we see this in the physical nature of things, that no rain will descend from above unless there's one drop of rain to come from above. There has to be corresponding 2 drops to ascend from below. Right? As we see that it's muggy before it rains. Why? Because it's ascending, and what goes up must come down. So for rain to come from above, the gift from above, so 2 drops go up, 1 drop comes down. What does that mean? It means that anything in the spiritual realm that I'm going to get a great illumination, like in prayer, that my inner heart could experience a connection to God, or can sense that connection to God beyond awareness, beyond, so to speak, I'm feeling it, so to speak, is first has to come from within. And what is that? That's the idea that we explained earlier, the bris milah, the circumcision, that there has to be a circumcision to remove the foreskin of the heart. Our heart has many layers, but the outside of the heart, as opposed to the outside as opposed to the external and the internal, right? I'm not talking about the outer layers of the heart, are covered. They're covered with a coarse and a thin um, husk. And in order to get to the innermost part of the heart, that needs to be removed. That innermost point that the love of God is, that God is my entire life. He's my entire life. He's my entire life. Right? That love of God, that He's my entire life, He's my entire being, it's an exile. Why? Because on the covering over it is the desires I have for mundane, worldly things, physical things, or even spiritual things. But those things, specifically material things, actually, specifically, material things, desires that we have, that we want those things for the sake of our life. See the contrast over here. The innermost level of my heart wants to be attached to God, that He is my life. But I have on the exterior covering over that truth, that reality, that innermost part of me, that I have desires for things in my life that are for the sake of my life. Not God. He's no thing. But I have on the exterior things, and that's countering the spirit of my inner soul that wants no thing, just God, that He is everything. But what do I want? I want everything on the outside of my heart of a material world. So that's covering over. Until we don't remove that aspect in us, then we can't get to the inner heart. So there's removal in the sense of being aware of this and then challenging that. But the Alter Rebbe gives us a positive way we can remove it, and this is the nuanced idea here is, and the detail of it is so phenomenal. So you would think, naturally, okay, so I gotta fight the urge. I gotta fight the urge that I want things in my life, and that's covering over. That's the husk that's covering over the inner thing that I don't want. No thing. I just want the truth of my soul. My soul, the truth that it has in the inner heart, is that God is my life. So, how are we going to get there? How are we going to get there? Tzedakah, charity. How? What does that mean? Well, think about it. Tzedakah is about giving my money. And here we're talking about money. I know it's tough, folks. It's tough. It's tough to give your money. Because the money is your vitality. It's your next piece of bread. It's your next meal. It's your next, clothing. It's your next thing. Things that it can have for you. It's tough for us. It's our very vitality that I can purchase the essentials of life. And in particularly, the Alter Rebbe says, especially for people whose income is very limited and they're hard pressed. That's giving your life. Giving tzedakah. When you're giving your very life. From the things you are now giving those things, and you're going to have less of those things in a sense, right? And especially the Alter Rebbe says that how do you support yourself? You work and you toil. And sometimes back in the day, especially today, people can sit behind a desk. Back in the day, if you were, today we really wanted people to be tilling the soil, to be people of the earth, very much so. So if you work hard, like literally as a laborer, right? So that means, he says, it's impossible that in your work you didn't involve the innermost point of your heart, the depth of your heart. That's how people are so occupied at work to make a living, eke out sometimes. Sometimes it's just eking out. And we're talking about, okay, some people have fortunes or have abundance, right? But through the fact that he's saying, because especially back, 200 years ago, um, things were much more challenging than today. Today's poor man is 200 years ago, wealthy person, relatively speaking, right? Relatively speaking. But okay, everything is relative. So you can't, you need this money to support yourself, and furthermore, you really put effort into making this money, so you put your whole being into it, and now you're dispersing it and giving unstintingly, despite your circumstance, and you give it with joy, glad, with a glad heart, not like ball and chain. You give it with a glad heart. The Alter Rebbe says you redeem yourself. You redeem your soul from the pit. You redeem your innermost point of your heart from the state of exile and captivity, from the coarse and thin klipa, that the husk that is covering over my heart, and I'm able to reach that place. Wow. So therefore, through charity, tzedakah, the innermost point of the heart, can now be redeemed from the forces of extraneous negativity that has been imprisoning our soul and the innermost point of our heart. And he says, we had the words in the concept before of there's mila and priya. So mila means excision, cutting the foreskin in the circumcision act. And priya was moving back the membrane. So in actual circumcision, there's two parts, and you need both of them. So the word priya is like to reveal the crown of the male genital by moving back the membrane, right? That's the physical thing. What does this mean metaphorically over here? So that was the thin membrane, right? So meaning the thin husk that covers over, right? The things that are more not so obvious uh, things about our personality and our issues and challenges that are covering over on the innermost heart that we have in connection. So, but the word priya also means, comes from the word priyas choiv, to removing a debt. In other words, we are indebted, meaning indebted means like we have something in a place that's where, in a sense, it's not belonging, right? You're in debt, so there's something that's not doesn't isn't jiving, so to speak. In other words, we're subjugated. Metaphorically, means we're subjugated to negative forces that rule the individual, that don't allow the innermost point of the heart to be revealed. Through charity, you're redeeming that. It's like payback. So giving is a payback. First of all, payback because ultimately it's a debt. God gave it to me that I should do He gave me the money, that I should do the right thing with it. And to remember, tzedakah comes from the word tzedek, means it's a righteous act. It's the just thing. And even more deeply, and the word priya means I'm removing the debt by giving. I owe. So, I owe. So off to work I go, right? No, no, no. I owe charity. I'm paying back. Uh, I, and that's redeeming. That redeems me through tzedakah. Because, and that's the idea that you're redeeming the captives, was the phrase that we had from, that we quoted earlier from, excuse me a second, where was that verse from? Don't remember. Okay, sorry, don't remember. I don't see it. No, we'll find it. In any case, so, whew. All right, let's unpack this. Let's make it relevant. Relevance, I guess, is pretty, some of it's pretty obvious. But what a different take on what charity means. Right? Charity in English, as we mentioned previously, is like I'm being charitable. I stand higher than the person I'm giving to, and I am being charitable. I am such a good guy. I'm giving. That's the notion of charity. That's not this notion over here. What a gift it is for us that that which is something that buys those things for me to give me vitality, literal physical vitality. It does. I buy my food. I buy the things I need, essentials. Forget about extras in abundance. Most of us are probably not in such a level, but I and I worked hard for it. Blood, sweat, and tears, as the saying goes. And so, meaning it's a my vital force that I put into making that. And so most people, that's hard to give. That's why we come into this world, our fist is clenched. We leave this world, no more clenched fist. Child comes into this world with a clenched fist, crying. I want. I need. I'm hungry. Now, nothing. We're not blaming the child for this. The point is that that's human nature. We want to hold on to what's ours and to disperse that unstintingly with joy. That redeems us. That we can now, that's the effort from within that the effort that I have to, from within, that allows me then to touch that inner part of my heart, which is a reflection of the core of my soul in a time of prayer. So, whew. So where we would think that for me to remove the husk of my heart, that I have some, we are so attached to things in a material world, so I'd have to really struggle to fight and overcome that. The Alter Rebbe is saying, no, just be giving, unstintingly, with great joy. That's removing the husk, both the coarse and even the thin membrane, so to speak, on the heart that's covering over, that I can't touch the inner dimension of my heart. So can you imagine if you have net earnings of only $20,000? 10% is $2,000. If you have net earnings of $70,000, net earnings. Net earnings is not after you eat, drink, and be merry. Net earnings is what your take home is. And you gave $7,000 over the year. To do that unstintingly, to do that with great joy is, it's easy to say. It's easy to say. It might be harder to live. And that's, to be quite frank. It's, it is a work. And that's why Algebra says that it gives us a capability for truly redeeming. And redeeming here is what's so beautiful. It's not redeeming like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be now. I'm going to Gan Eden. I'm going to heaven. You can say that. I'm gonna have a good life. He didn't say that, although in the previous letter we did speak about that. This is a different dimension over here. Right? In the previous letter, we spoke about that there's a ray of light that comes into this world that bears fruit in the act of giving, that you get long life, wealth, and honor. So that was previously what we spoke. Now the dimension or the angle is that it gives me access to the real me, to my neshama, my inner heart that I have access to. Because I've removed the husk of, I've excised, I have removed the coarse and the thin part of, that's covering over the inner part of my heart and allowing me to reveal that, to redeem it. That when I pray, I can have a connection, not like, ooh, how wonderful I am and how good this feels. That's not a connection. That's what's the word I'm looking for? It's not the connection we're talking about, at least. That there is a real connection, as we spoke yesterday, great length of I am. I'm just being in that connection. Powerful. So I gotta give. And yeah, we all gotta give. Absolutely. Very powerful ideas that the Alter Rebbe is sharing with us. Cool. All right. Now for some discussion, for questions and answers. Questions at least. Answers hopefully. I know now that. Please share that. Do we have some questions first on Facebook? Then we'll go to every other place. Please. Yes, Davida, what happens if someone who is poor and can't afford to give 10% of their income? How does this affect the husk on their heart? Yeah, so, you can't give 10% because, of the poverty that a person is experiencing. It's about an attitude of giving, and I guess giving in a way that, there's a sense of you're giving your life away. So, so if you're giving a quarter, it's wonderful. It's beautiful. If you put a quarter into a pushka, I'm not certain that that's what that means over here. Probably not too many people have a difficulty doing that, or even $1. I bet at $10, $20, $100, it probably starts to feel a little bit. You know, everybody where they're at. Um, I guess the idea that one is doing it with joy, giving something that's giving truly something that's of a vital significance to their life. If it's a vital significance and you're able to distribute and give that to tzedakah, so, perhaps that would be the sign. So, each person according. It's there's not a dollar amount over here in the sense of what you're giving, but it's got to be in the sense that you feel a sense of vitality in this. And the truth is, even at $1, $1 you could have bought yourself a few slices of bread at least, or quarter of a loaf, whatever the case may be. Remind you to post questions with question marks first. All right. Do we have any questions here? Liana, please share.
Morning.
Good morning.
Kind of on the question that you just answered. When there's people that have a heart to give. That's just their nature.
Right.
So when you give their 10% and I hate just using hard numbers, but just they give their 10% and it's removing that thin membrane of their heart. How does that affect the guy who doesn't have that heart to give, but he struggles and gives 5%? Is he giving? He's going. He's within his vitality, but is he removing more of that membrane because he's countering his internal nature?
Absolutely, no question. No question. As if you're, if you're countering the nature, the natural instinct that you have, and you're countering that, and maybe you're not giving it with the same zest and zeal as someone who by nature, and maybe they have enough and it's easy for them to give. Whereas someone else, yeah, absolutely. There's no question about that. But it seems to be that what the Alter Rebbe is saying here, that in order that you touch that inner part, see, as long as you feel, and I think maybe this is the point over here, as long as that I would feel that my vitality, my life is pending on things that money can buy, right? As long as I have that feeling, so I can't touch my inner heart. That doesn't mean there isn't a value in what you're doing. Absolutely, you didn't do it with great joy. You didn't do it unstintingly, right? There was the hesitation. There was the struggle and so on. That's great, fantastic. You overcame 100%, 100%. But we're talking about a different point over here. Right, we're talking about a different point over here. Our point, and maybe I don't want to get stuck on the 10% either, because some people they can't give the 10%. Fine. So let's not get stuck on that. I mean, that's something to strive towards, right? That's something to strive towards. But let's get stuck on the idea that what you're giving unstintingly with joy, because why? Why are you doing that? I mean, it's because your life is not about that, about the things that your money could buy. That's not your life. Your life is what the inner heart, if you're going to touch the inner heart we're talking about, that your inner heart is that God is my life. That's what we're talking about. So, is it $1,000 that gets you there? Is it a $10,000 ticket? Is it a 5% ticket? Is it a 10% ticket? I'm not certain. I don't think we should quantify it in that way. I don't think we should quantify it in that way. Well, we need to qualify it is the way the Alter Rebbe explains it. We can't get to the inner heart as long as my external, the husk that's covering over the inner heart is leading me and guiding me. And how's it guiding me? In the things that I'm looking for in my life. I want things, right? And money buys me things, right? Money buys me things. By the way, one of the things can be love, right? That's definitely what happened, you know, in unorthodox, but we won't go there, right? Money buys me things. So as long as that is me and that's important to me, then when I give money away, I, I know I have to do it, but I'm not going to do it unstintingly. And I'm not going to do it with joy. So unstintingly and joy is the key over here. How much is that? Leave that to everybody to judge for themselves between them and God. Again, we need to try to come to the 10% of one's net earnings. And that's the key, I think. That's the key. Michael.
Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem shalom.
Okay, Rabbi, so it is known that tzedakah greatly influences teshuvah. But I was asking actually, but I said, to what degree does tzedakah influence teshuvah? And is it that at some point the two are interchangeable?
Very good question. So, tshuva means to return to God. What greater return to God is there than reaching the inner heart? Our inner heart that is a reflection of the core of our soul. There's no greater tshuva. Tshuva means to return to, right? So, what are we returning? Return means you were there, and you're returning there. Where were you? What do you mean? I am who I am. I'm the soul of the Jewish soul that I have, that is reflected in my heart, in the inner heart. That what does the inner heart want? That God is my reality, that God is my truth, that God is my life. What does it mean that God is my life? That will reflect on my sense of purpose, that God put me here, right? It's going to be a sense of, again, not things that I'm looking to fill me, but how I could fulfill my purpose and being there of service, in service. Service to my family, service to my community, which is ultimately the service of God, right? So that's how it's going to reflect itself and express itself. I hope that clarifies.
Yes, Rabbi, thank you.
You're very welcome. Jeffrey, please share with us.
So, the old expression, time is money. So, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, and I don't mean as an exchange, like, oh, if I can't give 10%, can I give 40 hours or something like that? But what does giving and volunteering and maybe especially to my Chabad house or volunteering to help at a soup kitchen, I mean, what does that count for? Is it in the same realm of this idea, or is there something like that? And I don't mean going because you feel like you should go to a soup kitchen, but going because that's part of who you are and part of your heart. What do you think?
Excellent question. So, actually, thank you for asking that, because as you're asking that, I think I got a new inspiration for this idea. I forget there's a beautiful Hebrew phrase. Adam doyeg al ibud damim ve'enoi doyeg al ibud yomim. Translate, a person worries about losing money and doesn't worry about losing days. In other words, time we waste. Money we don't. I mean, we might waste it on ourselves, right? Or on foolish things, but so a person worries about wasting money and they don't worry about wasting time, wasting their days. So to give of your time is something we need to do. Absolutely. However, that's not gonna cut it over here. That's not going to cut it over here, according to what the Alter Rebbe is teaching us, and according to what this beautiful Hebrew teachings or phrases. That it's a rhyme also, because that's the problem with time. Is time comes and goes, and we look back, hey, and how much I could have accomplished, and da 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 da, right? But with money, we act very differently. And by the way, this week's parsha is got the Shema in it. And in the Shema, we say we should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And one of the explanations what might is money. Money, power, might, money. One of the explanations, it's not the only, there's a couple, few, it is money. So it doesn't make sense. How is it that if you love God with all your heart, with all your soul, ready to even give up your life, but then comes money? How does that make sense? Because money, people are ready to maybe give up their lives, but not their money so quick. So yes, we need to be able to give up our time. Absolutely, we need to do that. However, that's not the point here. And again, clearly, the challenge that we have when it comes to that, because time, it's interesting, time, we don't look at it as a thing. Maybe we would, then we wouldn't waste it so much. We don't look at it as a thing. It's sort of like this abstract, non-thingy thing, right? And therefore, that's why we can waste it so easily. But money, it gets me things, the things that are important to me in my life. So that's the idea over here. We got to get rid of those things, in order that we can come to the real thing. That's no thing. Nothing. God. I hope that explains it, Jeff.
Yeah, so I said time is money, so that's obviously in question, but there's also the expression of put your money where your mouth is, but in this case it sounds like it's put your money where your heart is.
You're very well said. Yeah, put your money where your heart is, right? Exactly, to the inner aspect of the heart. Yes. Thank you. Liba, so if one gives grudgingly, does that lead to redeeming? So no. So that's what we explained over here. It doesn't. You have to give unstintingly, and you have to give joyously. That's what the Alter Rebbe is saying very clear. Again, if you're poor and you don't have, and you just barely make your necessities, you can still give something. That's what Jewish law says. Even someone who literally panhandles, halacha says that person also has to give. Obviously, for them that they're going to give $1, that's already something, right? That's already something. So everybody according to what uh, you know. So David is asking to be clear. If you work for yourself and you make, for example, $1,000, but you have rent and all the expenses of your business, so it's only what your take home is. In other words, if you have a business and the business is making $100,000 a year, right? But that's not your take home. You're not making $100,000 if your business is merely making $100,000, because you're paying for rent, you're paying for utilities, and so on and so forth. We're talking about things that are of the nature of the business, not the things that are for you personally, right? Yes, so absolutely correct. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? Um, right. I guess there's clarity. Um, oh, second. Doesn't Hashem choose us to be givers and takers? No, He wants us all to be givers. Now, just this is what we're learning here in this particular letter. We're going to learn a bunch of letters about tzedakah, and they're all different kind of angles, as we learned in the previous letter. Right here, this is a different angle that we're speaking about. So all of us have to be givers, and here we're speaking specifically about money. Absolutely. And Jeffrey, as you said about time, absolutely. We also have to give our time, to teach others, to help others, and that's also something very important. So we all have something we can give. So some people don't have so much money to give, and maybe they have a talent that they could give, or maybe, like you said, Jeffrey, in your Chabad house, that you help out, that you give something to your Chabad house that's a talent that might even be worth more than the money that you give. And so absolutely that is not only admirable, but something that we need to do, and might have more value to the Chabad house than the money that you're giving, right? But that's not the teachings over here. So, just we can have full perspective on it. There is something about giving a talent that you have. If someone's artistic and they help a Chabad house or their synagogue or whatever. And by the way, just briefly, when we speak about tzedakah, tzedakah doesn't mean just to poor people. It means to institutions, but those institutions have to be that they are promoting Torah and mitzvahs. So if you're giving to the local football team, right? Or you're giving to the local orchestra, that's not part of tzedakah. That doesn't is not deemed as being charitable. You can do that, but that's not part of the obligation of the 10%. It has to be either to poor people, and in that there's a hierarchy on what that means, and to institutions that are promoting Torah mitzvahs, being close to Hashem. That is the two things that a person should be giving, again, from their 10% obligation. So if you're giving to something that is, again, you want to give to the local, football team, baseball team, or whatever it is. I'm just telling you what Jewish law says. You can do whatever you want, obviously. But Jewish law says that that doesn't constitute part of the obligation to give tithes. Davida says that she heard in a class that we are chosen to be givers and takers. Also spoke about that we should see that the takers give more than the giver, and the giver gives to the taker. That's true, because the taker is taking merely money. What is the giver? Giver is getting a lot more than the taker, because the giver is getting an opportunity that they can touch the core of their heart, the innermost part of their heart. So in that sense, the giver is getting a lot more than the taker. Thank you for sharing that, Davida. That's absolutely correct, right? But yes, absolutely correct. So and that's how you can give it with joy. That's how you can give unstintingly with joy, because you're getting more. So the last letter, you're getting more because through tzedakah that bears fruit. What is its fruit? Longevity of life, honor, and wealth. So, and now you can touch the inner core of your heart and the very soul of the individual. Well, so absolutely, you're receiving a lot more than what you're giving. Very well said. Jane, does not just giving doesn't just money. We can give our time. Okay, we spoke about that. Yes, thank you. Okay, beautiful. All right, folks, any other questions, comments, thoughts? A reminder about the Tanya journal. I don't know if this can be taken from your charity. I mean, maybe. To think about that. That's a good question. Well, and why am I just thinking about that? Only because you're getting something for it. I think it's still no. Since this is promoting Judaism, your connection to God, it actually might be able to be taken from Sadaqah. Just I have to confirm that, but I think so. Even though you're gaining, yes, of course. Even though you're getting something.
Rabbi, charge more.
Actually, it's covering the cost. But you're right. Well, then can tzedakah be, I have to look into this a little more. Can you take from your charity, for example, like obviously to give to Chabad or to give to your synagogue just straight out like that is for sure, no question. To give and you're getting something in return like the mentoring group, even though that's also promoting, connection to Hashem. But I have to double check that. That's a really good question that just came up to me. But yes, Jeff. Well, let's start with this. More importantly, why am I bringing that up? Because just my intent is that this Tanya journal is really enhancing everybody's experience and learning and owning the teachings and really making it relevant. So I'm trying to make it easier. That's what I'm trying to do. All right, folks. Wonderful. By the way, for that, just a reminder, TanyaRabbi.com/Tanya Journal. Or just go there and you'll see the Tanya Journal and you can sign up over there. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine coming to you from Chabad, Zichron, Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining.